All right, so today we are going to cover the rest of the forest, which will be temperate deciduous, temperate rain, and taiga. And so we'll start with temperate rainforest. These are probably unusual to you because you'd pretty much have to go to Oregon and Washington State to see those. Has anybody ever been out there to see those? No? Okay. Well, instead of having deciduous trees that lose their leaves, they have gymnosperms, which would be like the giant sequoias or redwoods. But you can find them in North America, Australia, and New Zealand. Remember, New Zealand is an island off of Australia. See a little better in the dark here. And those gymnosperms are also called evergreen trees. So now we've got several names for gymnosperms. Evergreens, gymnosperms, Christmas trees. What else? Conifers, remember that word? So, well, you can call it coniferous forest, but individually they're called conifers. So all of those words basically mean trees that don't lose their leaves. Also, they have Douglas fir, Sitka spruce, larch, Larch, which is a type of evergreen tree. And just like the rainforest, you're seeing lots of ferns and moss, right? So probably different species than the ones that are in the rainforest, but still ferns and moss. And this area right along in here is where you find the temperate rainforest. Okay, so all the way up into Alaska. And it gets pretty warm down here as you get towards the Baja Peninsula, but they still get enough rain for them to call them the temperate rainforest. Yes, in California, especially in Northern California. Always along the coast, though, because that extra rain is coming off of the ocean. So although located north most other rainforests, the temperate rainforest in the Pacific Northwest maintains a moderate temperature year-round, but it's not as high as the temperature in the tropical rainforest. It does not freeze there very often because the Pacific Ocean water is, you remember how those deep currents kind of affect the land temperature, and so those deep currents keep it warmer, and they blow cool ocean water over the forest. It's where the ocean winds meet the coastal Olympic Mountains, so it's a mountain chain, and it's on the windward side that you get all this rainfall because moisture has a hard time getting up over the mountain, and so it kind of bumps into the mountain. It's called the rain shadow effect. You've probably heard that before. And this is going to be on the windward side, so it kind of the weather bumps into the mountain and then just kind of dumps the rain on top of that area. Hillsborough and Viola and McMinnville receive a lot of rain too. I don't know if you live out that area, but sometimes it rains more there than it rains anywhere else, and that's because the same thing happens. The weather's coming from the west, from Nashville. It kind of hits the Cumberland Plateau. It can't get over it, so it just dumps all the rain right before it goes over the mountain. And so that keeps the temperature cool and moist. The temperature in the temperate deciduous forest, which is where we live, and it's most of the eastern United States, is going to be moderate. And so when we say moderate, that means we have seasons, and we can't really say that it's constant. And if you've lived in Tennessee very long, you know that that's not the case. Like it's supposed to be 50 today. This morning it was 30. That's a 20-degree shift in temperature. That's pretty normal for us. They're characterized by trees that shed their leaves in the fall and located between the latitudes 30 and 50 north. The range of temperature can be extreme, with summer temperatures soaring above 35 degrees Celsius and winter temperatures falling below freezing. We get about 75 to 125 centimeters of precipitation annually, which helps in decomposition of organic matter and gives us rich soil. And so remember, fungi like moisture, right? So you're not going to find many fungi out in the desert. They like it where it's moist, and so they help break down those leaves and turn it into rich humus, which makes our soil very fertile. This should look familiar to you. Does that look like outside your house? It should. So that's a temperate deciduous forest. And like I said, most of the eastern United States falls into this biome. This is what the graph would look like for temperate deciduous forest. This is actually Stuttgart, Germany. It's not here in the United States. It's over here. But this is about the same latitude as Maine. Okay. And so this is your temperature gradient right here. Can you see summer in there? What months have the highest temperature? June, July, and August. Okay, and that's correct for us as well, right? And when do you get the most rain? So what season would we call that? Spring. Is that the same here? Most of our rain comes in the spring, correct? So if you were to go to Germany, then it would be similar in temperature and rainfall to Tennessee. So you should be able to look at this graph and tell me that this is a temperate deciduous forest based on the rainfall and the seasons that you can see here, the temperature rise and fall. Plants in the temperate deciduous forest grow in layers as well, with tall trees such as birch dominating the canopy, while shrubs cover the understory, and more light reaches deciduous forest floors than it does in rainforest floors, allowing more plants to grow. So we still have really thick forest, though. When we went out and looked and explored in the woods next door to the school, there weren't a lot of plants in there, but there were some, right? And so it gets fairly thick with trees more than it does plants on the forest floor. And that's why we weren't able to find insects, is because those insects are eating what? Plants. And all the insects in the forest are up in the top where the leaves are, because you can't do a lot with a tree trunk. It's kind of tough to get through. Temperate forest plants are adapted to survive seasonal changes. In the fall and winter, they shed their leaves and their seeds go dormant under the insulation of soil. With the returning warmth in the spring, the trees grow new leaves and seeds germinate. And so the seeds of many of our trees are a food source. Can you name some of those that are a food source and a seed? Shall I pick people? I think I shall. Marley, what's a food source and a seed for a tree in the temperate deciduous forest? A tree seed. That's a food source. An acorn. Very good. Let's see here. Joseph, give me another one besides an acorn. Okay. Persimmon. Okay, persimmon. Okay. Savannah, give me another one. Think about nuts we use in cooking. Y'all don't cook? Wow. What do y'all do? I hear somebody popping in. That's probably Ellis. He probably just got up. What about pecans?
That's what I was going to say. I didn't know that.
Well, then why didn't you say it?
Because I didn't think I was right.
What about walnuts?
What about?
Well, not for the temperate deciduous. What'd you say online?
Chestnuts, almonds, walnuts.
Yep, chestnuts, walnuts, almonds. Okay, so we eat tree seeds. Y'all don't think of it like that, though, do you? You're like, this is a pecan sandy. It's actually a seed cookie. That's a weird way to say it, but that's what it is, because that's the seed. Animals of the deciduous forest are adapted to the forest changes. They rely on the plants for food and shelter. Birds migrate. You'll see some birds come down here for the winter because it's warmer than where they naturally are. One of them is the cardinal, which is that red bird up in the top right-hand corner. We also get a lot of different migrating birds in the fall. You'll see unusual birds that we don't usually see here because they're on their way further south than Tennessee. But some of them don't go any further than Tennessee because redbirds are adapted to eat some of the berries that we have that last throughout the winter here, like holly berries. You'll see them on Christmas cards with those really red berries. They can eat those, and they do eat those. And so they come from up north, and Tennessee's about as far south as they go. Hummingbirds, however, are here during the summer, and then they go down to Central and South America for the winter because it's too cold, and they eat what? Nectar. Are there any flowers in Tennessee in the winter? No. Okay. Other animals, such as mammals and insects, can reduce their activity so that they don't need as much food or energy to survive. This is either hibernation for things like bears. This is a black bear in the bottom right-hand corner here. These adapt by eating bark. Okay, so the deer are going to move from eating grass to eating bark off of trees. And then some animals like birds and squirrels go into a state called estivation. And that's like a semi-sleep. They're not hibernating really, they're just kind of chilling. So they don't eat but maybe like once a week. Okay? And Mo over here, I'm trying to keep her from going into rumination, which is something that desert animals do. We'll talk more about that when we talk about the desert, but she's not eating as much, and it's making me nervous. It's natural for them to do that, but I didn't want, there's no need for her to go into rumination because she's not really in the desert. And she's just going to like lay around and do nothing, which is kind of like what I want to do too. Maybe I'm going into rumination. Anyway, moving on to our last type of forest. This is the taiga. That's how you say it. Not the wrapper. But the taiga is a region of evergreen coniferous trees. So are those gymnosperms or angiosperms? Gymnosperms. And they are found just below the Arctic and subarctic circle in the tundra region. So just below the tundra, you have the taiga. The taiga, yeah, Christmas tree works too. The taiga has long winters and very little vegetation aside from these coniferous plants. There's some moss and things like that too, but you don't have like a lot of shrubs and things like that. The growing season is 50 days. Okay? That's not enough time for most plants. So can you grow corn in the taiga? Can you get corn in 50 days? Nope. Can you get tomatoes in 50 days? Nope. So there's a lot less food there for animals. And because of the nearly constant daylight and large amounts of precipitation, the plants have to do all their growing in that 50 days. Now, this is really weird. I don't know if I told you all this, but when I went to Ireland, it does not get dark until about 2 in the morning.
Our time or their time?
Well, their time, but it's still 2 in the morning. And so you'd be outside, this is in summer, you'd be outside walking around, people are walking their dogs and stuff, and it's 2 in the morning. And it really messes with your like sleep cycle, because we're not talking about bright light outside, but it's daylight. And so I asked some of these people that were out walking their dog at 2 in the morning, because we were still up, because, you know, we go to sleep when it starts to get dark, and it gets light again at 7. So, you know, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So you got about 5 hours of darkness. We said, what time are you going to get up in the morning since you're up to like 2 every night? And they're like, oh, we get up at the regular time. And I'm like, so you run on like 5 hours of sleep maybe? They're like, yeah.
I didn't move to Ireland. That's like a schedule anyway.
So as you go towards the north, remember we talked about the tilt of the earth and how, you know, it tilts away from the sun in the winter. Then you're going to be darker in the winter. And Alaska sometimes has a month of darkness. Okay, so it never gets light. Does that make sense? Have y'all seen that horror movie, what is it, 30 Days of Night? It's about vampires. Not the horror movies. Well, if you're going to be a vampire, Alaska's the place to live. Because just like in the summer, they have almost constant daylight. The further north you get, they have a period of time in the winter where it's constantly dark. Okay? And that messes with the growing season for plants because they can't do anything when it's dark, right? They can't go through photosynthesis. And so I just think that's very strange. It took me, the first time I went to Ireland, it took me about a month to get over my sleep cycle being messed up. And we actually had to go camping for a week. I went to the doctor because I could not sleep. I didn't know when to go to sleep. My body, we stayed there for 3 weeks, and my body was just like, when do we sleep? And so the doctor said, you need to go camping for a week. And when it gets dark, go to sleep. And when it gets light, wake up. And that's what we did. And it fixed me. But it really jacked up my sleep cycles to stay so long over there. And I think if you took a quick trip, it wouldn't be so bad. But we tried to schedule our driving time so that we wouldn't ever be driving at night, because it's kind of scary to drive in Ireland at night because you might go over a sea cliff. Their roads are like this wide. But we could drive until midnight and still have daylight. It was really weird. Well, it's a nice place to visit. I don't think I would want to live there. It was also 40 degrees in June, so that's pretty cold. So Ireland's not quite in the taiga, but it's getting close to it. As you get up into northern Scotland, it starts to look like this right here, if there's any trees at all. A lot of their land is just barren rock, and it's got heather growing on it, which is this bush that's got purple blooms on it sometimes, but other times it's just brown and rocky and barren. There's not really grass or anything. And so this is a picturesque photo of the taiga. This is where I was supposed to be in October, Banff, which is in Canada. I'm very sad that I did not get to go. That should be me standing on that rock right there. But you notice the shape of the tree there. That's an adaptation for shedding snow. So if it does snow on them, they're not going to break. They're going to shed that like a chalet. If you've ever seen those houses that are A-frames, they call them, those are chalets. And they're built for places like this so that the snow will slide off of them. If you see a graph like this, you're going to see that this is taiga. So again, they have seasons, but there's a sharp drop-off in temperature, okay? Do they get as much rain as a temperate deciduous forest? They do not. In fact, you're going on up into the tundra up in here, which is basically a frozen desert. They get barely any rain. Okay? So another adaptation for those trees would be that they don't require a lot of rain. And this is for Edmonton, Canada, this is where I would have been. It's very close to Banff. Have you all seen any pictures of like Lake Louise or anything like that? Well, I'll show you why I wanted to go. This is why I wanted to go. That hotel. I had one night scheduled in that hotel. That's all I could afford. One night. You'll see it. Yeah. Who wouldn't want to go there, right? And I don't even ski. We weren't going to ski or anything, but yeah. They have hikes that leave from the hotel. That's an ice castle someone's built. You want to see the price? $600 a night. That's for a bad room. That was for a bad room. But you can always go outside, right? So, that's right. That would be $200 a night. Because it's really cold. That's why. But anyway. So again, a conifer is the tree of the taiga. It has seeds that develop in cones. Their leaves are arrow-shaped with a waxy coating. That waxy feel that you have on your Christmas tree is to help them retain water because it doesn't get a lot of water and it would evaporate. The conifer shape helps the tree shed snow and not get weighted down. Needles also contain acid, which is a defense against other trees. So you don't really think of trees fighting one another, but they do. As the needles fall to the ground, they acidify the soil, and it kills any other plant that might be growing close to them so that they can't steal the nutrients and the water that are available for that tree. So if you think plants aren't cool, they're pretty cool. Also, soil forms very slowly in the taiga because of the acidity. Acid kills bacteria and fungi. And so it's hard to have decomposition going on when you're killing everything that does the decomposition. Also, it's refrigerated, and as you know, that slows down decomposition because that's why you put your food in a refrigerator. It'll eventually decompose, as you've noticed by the moldy cheese or ham in your fridge, but it takes it a lot longer to decompose when it's cold. These are some of the animals. The taiga has many lakes and swamps in the summer that attract birds that feed on insects. It has a lot of mosquitoes. My dad lived in Alaska, and he said that the mosquitoes were about the size of hummingbirds. He said they were huge and vicious. So mosquitoes are a problem in the taiga and the tundra. And to avoid harsh winters, birds again migrate. There are a few that stay year-round, but not many. Most of the ones that stay are going to burrow, such as shrews. We talked about shrews when we did the owl pellet. That's what a shrew looks like. This is an owl. The insulation inside those trees, when it makes kind of like the snowy tint, is actually pretty warm for birds, and so a lot of them will live inside the trees underneath the snow. It's kind of like a little city under there. This is a bobcat or a lynx, and of course your moose. And moose are huge. If you've never seen a moose, you don't want to see a moose, first off, because they're not very nice, but they're enormous, like taller than this room. Their heads would be up in the ceiling tiles. They're that big. They're huge. And if they charge you, you're not going to win. So stay away from moose. Huh? Moose. No, it's just moose. Do not help people with English, Hannah. It's just moose. Other animals, such as the snowshoe hare, have adapted to avoid predation. They're brown in the summer and white the rest of the time. So for 50 days, they're white or brown, and then the rest of the time they're white. But there's also a neat adaptation. As they're pulling out their white fur, they make a nest for their babies, so they also reproduce in that 50 days. So the fur doesn't go to waste. They use it to line their nest. If you've ever had rabbits, that's something that they do to make their nest. They pull out their neck fur and make a nest for their babies. Camouflage. This is one of the birds. I think this is a sapsucker of some sort. These come down here during the winter months. This is a caribou. Now, caribou are weird. They shed their horns. Okay? Elk and caribou shed their horns. Deer don't do that. White-tailed deer don't do that, but these shed horns. So you can find those and pick them up. It doesn't mean the animal's dead. Okay. All right, so we're going to take the quiz now. Go to Google Classroom. You may use your book and your notes. Use the web link. You have one attempt. Not two.
This is chapter 7, right?
6.2. 10 questions, one chance. Read carefully.